Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Code with Italians 2022. It's a new year. And what better way to start the year than with some design? And what better kind of design than the hands-on design kind? So, hi, Chris. Welcome back. And especially thank you for being with us at such an early time of day for you. I know it is very early.
Yeah, thanks for having me. No, it's good to get up early in the new year. Good New Year's resolution.
Glad to be helping with that.
Spe-
So,
lucky us that you didn't have something like training, right? So no, he's running around, so he can't join us. So that's good. Thank you for joining us.
before we start, I want to give a big shout out to our resident friendly troll, Mark. You have been listening to his creation during the pre-roll, the new song that is called Code Italiano. If you are a supporter on Twitch or a subscriber on, a supporter on Coffee or a subscriber on Twitch, you will have access to a special version that Mark has made for us that is only available there. So I don't know, Ivan, maybe you want to explain what this is about.
Yes, so we're doing this for free, but we are also doing it for stickers. So we can send you stickers and we can print stickers thanks to people that support the stream in different ways. If you have an Amazon Prime subscription, you can connect it to your Twitch account, and every month, as you just saw for a few of us, you can subscribe for free to a channel. We are also on Coffee. That's a platform to support creators. On Coffee, we have a subscription or one shot donations. With subscription, we have various tiers, and you get various level of gifts back. And if you pick oh yeah, congratulations, we got the hype train. We get you got also access to our Discord channel, and if you are like a long-term subscriber supporter, you also get a package full of food from Italy. So that's interesting. Over time, you will see that you can win stickers with our giveaways. Our supporters also allow us to reach one of our goals. The first goal that we set is the designer hiring, or at least supporting at some level. It's not a lot of money, but we want to have some feedback from a professional designer about the design of our app. So that's our first goal, and we are almost there. Thank you a lot. We are at the moment at 90%. So thank you, Mark. Thank you, Maya, and thank you all of our supporters on Coffee. And we are also running giveaways for IntelliJ today. So let me just give you more information about this in the chat. There is still time to join the giveaway, and yeah, from me is everything. I don't want to steal time because I want to learn about Figma.
Let's learn Figma. Oh, thank you for the sub, Yogler. Did I read it right? I don't know.
So how do you imagine this, Chris?
I think if we can just jump, I think the easiest thing is just jump into Figma and go from there.
Should I share your screen then?
Yeah. Yes, please.
And there it is. Off you go.
Cool. I guess, how familiar are you guys with Figma? I'm curious.
I am a bit. I can do basic stuff. I can do basic operations. I still don't understand how libraries and styles and stuff like that work. Like I cannot find any information about that.
I see.
From my side, it's even less because I'm mostly a consumer of what the design team prepared for us on Figma. So my understanding of Figma is more like, okay, this is the layout, this is how I export the assets, and this is the style for the text, and it's more like a reference for the design system and dimensions at more or less. So that's that. I really have any I don't have any experience building things with Figma. It's more like, okay, I'm just reading from Figma than writing from to Figma.
Gotcha. Okay, yeah, that's good to know. So yeah, with Figma, it's a design tool, and I think it's the most, I guess it's the hottest design tool recently. So before Figma, there were other design tools that designers used to use a lot, namely Sketch. Sketch,
Yeah.
I think Sketch is still widely used now. I wouldn't say it's like everyone's using Figma, but at least in the last, so I can't remember who runs this survey, but there's kind of a designer or design tools survey that's run once a year, just to kind of survey designers in the world and see like what processes and tools that they're using and what they're excited about using, and kind of the challenges they face. And it asks everything from like, what design tool do you use? What do you use to brainstorm? What do you use to do illustrations? What do you use to prototype? Gather user feedback. And not surprising to me, but interestingly, in the last 2 years, Figma has kind of just basically taken the crown for all of those things. I think back in maybe 2019, when Figma was really early, a lot of people were still using Sketch and a lot of other tools for prototyping. But what's been interesting is that Figma has started to basically take over to be the tool for kind of everything a designer needs, whether it's doing very specific high fidelity mockups or making specs to hand off, or doing illustration, or doing rich prototyping, or even just brainstorming. You can kind of see it here, but there's this product they call FigJam, which is I think they released it last year. It's hard to remember exactly when, but FigJam was really exciting because it was kind of like this brainstorming tool that's really fun and lightweight, and it kind of takes the same concepts of Figma but really simplifies it so that people who are not designers can kind of more easily use it for brainstorming or just building mood boards. I think we talked about this in many streams ago, but it's become kind of this other tool that people have used for whiteboarding and diagramming and brainstorming, that then they kind of like couple with their design files. And so Figma kind of makes this difference between a FigJam file and a design file. And design files, like where you do all the really nitty gritty design details, and like that's where you're actually like mocking things up. And then in FigJam, you kind of do it's a little rougher, and that's more for like putting ideas together and like brainstorming. But you can kind of do design in FigJam as well, because with design, sometimes you don't have to always jump to high fidelity. You can do kind of wireframing or flow diagrams, and FigJam is like a really great tool for that, to just get those ideas on paper. But I think the unique thing about Figma is that it was built with the cloud in mind and with collaboration in mind. So that was one thing I think in the past with design tools. So Sketch, I mentioned Sketch before, but even before that, there were like Adobe design tools. Adobe has a similar kind of user interface design tool called Adobe XD, and that's pretty popular too. But I think what made Figma really popular is, well, one, I think, is the collaboration, because it started in the browser. So I'm showing this as a desktop app, but you can use you can use Figma fully in the browser. And I think that was really powerful for people because so Sketch was Mac only, which for designers is not the biggest restriction, but the reality is there are many designers in the world that use Windows or they don't use Mac. And so it was kind of limiting that only Mac users could use Sketch. And so when Figma came on the scene, I think collaboration was a big thing, but the fact that Windows users could use Figma was really big. In fact, my old employer, Microsoft, they obviously, a lot of designers who work there use Windows. And they were from what I could tell and like talking to some old colleagues, they were one of the biggest kind of Figma customers in the early days because they had so many designers, they had thousands of designers at the company who were not using Sketch and they needed something to work together. And so they were a really big kind of influencer and customer of Figma because they were using it as an organization. Because they needed a better design tool than what they didn't have. And so Figma was a really great solution for them. And I think the collaboration aspect, is really tied into it. So it's a little hard to demonstrate the collaboration here because I'm on my personal file, but if I change to my Google account, it would be a lot more interesting, but I also can't share. All right, I would be very wary of like what is being shown there. So that's why I'm just showing my personal account. So
we want you to come back, so please don't share stuff that you cannot share.
Yeah, most of the things, I work on Android development stuff, and so a lot of that stuff is open source, so it's not necessarily secret, but I never know what I will accidentally share, so I'll just...
Never know.
Yeah. Someone might see like some new device and they're like, what's that? I'm like, oh, I don't know what that is.
Oh, it's just a Pixel Fold. Don't worry.
Yeah. It's just another phone.
You know how it is, right? This random stuff from random manufacturers. So don't worry about that.
Yeah. I'll be like, no, that's just another messaging app. Nothing new there. So, don't worry about that. Anyway, so this is Figma. This is kind of like when you log in, this is what you'll see. This is the desktop app. So the desktop app is nice because it has like this home screen, and then like you can open each individual Figma file as a tab. It doesn't operate that much differently in the browser. And so in the browser, you would just have separate tabs for all of these things. But this kind of shows you like all your recent files. You can kind of get started with some templates. Like I said, there's FigJam and there's Figma. If we have time, we could show FigJam. Have the two of you heard of FigJam before?
I have heard of it, but I've never used it.
Okay.
No, I haven't.
Yeah.
I was wondering if it's free or it has a free tier that people can try, because I never used it.
Yeah, FigJam is free. It's actually, I think, even more free than Figma. I think with FigJam you can. So there's like different tiers for Figma. Like I'm using on my personal account, I have the free one, but I think this kind of shows you how much it costs for, at least in dollars. But like for the professional, you can pay $12 a month. But the free account, you can create, I think, 3 design files, and then you can create unlimited FigJam files. Let's see if you can kind of see here the starter team overview. See 1 unlimited FigJam files during the beta. So FigJam is still in beta, and then 1 of 3 Fig files are used, and you can use different projects. And so I think I can only have 1 project, which is this one, which is just called Flannel Elephant. So in Figma, like things can be organized into, they don't always map exactly to how you would think about it. But if you see on the left, there's like, it says Flannel Elephant and Personal. These are called teams. So under your account, you can have different teams. But the other thing is like your account can be tied to different organizations. So for mine, it's not very interesting because my personal design account is not tied to any organization. But like if I showed my Google account, then you could see like I would be part of the Google organization, but I'm also a part of other organizations that have shared their design files with me. So you can have multiple accounts in different organizations. You can kind of jump through them. It's kind of, I guess, similar to Slack, but it allows you to kind of like manage your workspace in different ways. But within each account, you can have different teams. And so here I don't know how many teams I can create, but within a team, you can create projects. And so, for example, in my personal account, I have an apps project and then I have a random project. And within each project, you can put different files. And so this kind of gives people some level of organization. It doesn't quite scale to every single need, but it works pretty well for most, especially like even at the Google scale, I think it works good enough is from what I've experienced. But you can do little things like set permissions on different projects. You can say, oh, like every designer in your team or every person on your team can kind of be put into this one team. But then you can kind of lock down different projects and files to say, oh, only these designers can edit files in this project, etc. So there's all these ways to do permissions more granularly within Figma. Or you can just, which I tend to do, is just be more open and be like, hey, anyone can view anything. And for the most part, anyone can edit anything. But the editing thing, though, is interesting because in Figma, everything it's all collaboration based. So I guess maybe we can just jump. Oh, I guess the one other thing I'll say is in Figma, which I think is a great learning resource, is community. This is where you can get all your plugins and all your kind of starter files. So there's a ton of plugins for Figma. Figma itself is very powerful to draw stuff, but the community has made a ton of plugins that make drawing or just making designing things even easier that Figma just didn't decide to do in the core product. And so these plugins have kind of filled a large gap in some of the features. There's a ton of them, everything from like picking colors to fonts to like making squircles, spell check. There's actually a really interesting, I haven't quite tested it, but there's a designer that's pretty well known in the community for making Figma plugins. His name's Jordan Singer, but he has this whole set of plugins around like automating Figma, which kind of reminds me of like macros. If you ever used macros in like the old days with Microsoft Office products like Excel, it's like...
You mean viruses?
Viruses, yeah. Viruses. But it allows you to automate a lot of stuff. Like oftentimes in Figma, like especially if we're kind of doing... if we're speccing some design for an engineer or to hand off to somebody, that work it's a lot of manual work and it's just very repetitive. And so this automator plugin actually allows you to kind of like record what you're doing and then replay it. And so I think there's been a lot of interesting use cases people have done to kind of automate their workflows with this plugin. But that plugin or that functionality was not necessarily built into Figma to begin with, but he built this plugin on top of the Figma plugin API. So I haven't tried it myself, but some of the examples I've seen on Twitter are like pretty amazing of like, oh, wow, that would actually save me a lot of time to kind of build these little macros out. And I think, so within the community, like, I think this is where you can find plugins, but you can also just find design resources. So, one of the ones I would always go to is material design. So,
oh no.
With
you froze for a second.
It's weird. Oh, I did?
Yeah, now you're back.
Oh, sorry. I don't know where I got frozen, but
you got
can
frozen.
Search for material.
Yeah, just as you said, you're going to material design.
Okay. There's a lot of material design stuff. So, but the material design team specifically has their own account, which you can find within Figma. But they have all these design kits. And so these design kits kind of help designers get started with Figma. But they also kind of take the form of design labs. So like Figma, the great thing about Figma is like these files are all cloud-based, and so they all live on the cloud and they can be updated in real time. And so, a lot of design teams have used Figma not just as a way to hand off design, but as a way to like hand off instructional material, because you can kind of treat these as slides too. And so one thing we've a lot of designers have done is like they've stopped using Google Slides or Keynote, and they just do slides in Figma. Or even more interesting, which I haven't done myself, but I want to do, is like instead of building your portfolio on like Squarespace or some website or website builder, people have just made their portfolio in Figma. And so you can basically open that in Figma, and then it's like, it's the prototype, and it's like, oh, your portfolio is a Figma file. But it's kind of cool because it's one source of truth, and designers, don't have to learn how to code or like maintain a website. They're just like, oh, I'm just going to update this Figma file, which is my portfolio.
It's very meta.
Yeah. But yeah, for example, so if you wanted to get started with material, I'm going to be daring and open this Material 3 design kit. But what's cool about Figma, so for the community resources, is like when people share it with you, you can actually preview it even before you duplicate it. So in this case, like you can kind of zoom in and see like what's going on with this file. You're like, oh, okay, this file has some guidance around Material 3 on one page. On the second page, it has styles. And then on the third page, it has components. And this is all like live and interactive, which is and this is all happening in the desktop app, but you can do this in the browser too. And then you can, see all the usual stuff like changelog, and like you can see comments that people made. But when you duplicate it, it will open it as a Figma design file. And so in this case, it's literally a copy of it, and then you can kind of use this to get started. And so someone from the material team, beautifully handcrafted this file to make it kind of a walkthrough for you to use. And so this is all stuff that was designed in Figma. But what we're seeing here is actually, which maybe the two of you haven't seen as much, is the editing mode in Figma. So you probably see the inspect mode more than the editing mode in your, at least in your work. Yes. But this is kind of, yeah, there's really three modes in Figma. There's design mode, there's prototyping mode, and there's inspect mode. Inspect mode is kind of the default mode for people who only have view access to a file. And so you'll tend to see, I don't know if I can really zoom in, but on the left, actually what's kind of annoying on Figma is on the right, this side panel here, you can't resize it. It's always this big.
I have noticed that, yeah.
Yeah, which is, I get it. It's like, it keeps it simple, but it's also sometimes I wish it was a little bigger, especially when like looking at code, like, this is looking at Android code. Not to say that this code is the best, but yeah, so this is typically what you would see if you're looking at view access. So you can kind of like click on things, and then this panel will change. Actually, this is kind of, yeah. And so as you click around, you can see different things like what is the name of this thing, which is not always the most interesting, but what is more interesting is like what is the width, the height. This is showing you like the fill container is kind of showing you how the layout is working. It's kind of the way layout works in Figma. It's kind of a mix between Flexbox and constraint layout. If I had to explain to Android developers, it's not exactly constraint layout and it's not exactly Flexbox. It's kind of in the middle. So it's not, but it does make sense and it works kind of nicely. But then you can also see things like colors. You can copy it in different values, which is useful for handing off. And then if you want to copy the code, you can. I don't know how honestly, I personally don't know how useful this is for developers, because like sometimes when I look at this code, especially like Android, I'm like, okay, it gives me view code, but it's like, am I really going to copy this? I don't know.
Nope,
it probably not. So yeah, maybe it's more useful for CSS or for iOS, but for Android, it's like, I'm not sure how useful it really is.
I generally keep the CSS view and copy the values from there. I find it more useful than the Android one, because the CSS one has less ceremony around it. It's like, that's the CSS. Those are the values. Go for it.
Yeah, that's true. And then I think the other thing that's useful, you can kind of see in my mouse is like moving around, all these like red lines are showing up. This is really useful for people to see, because it shows you all the spacing between elements. And so actually, if we go to a more interesting page like components, so you can zoom into each component, you can like click on it, and then I think in inspect mode, you don't have to do anything with the keyboard. I think it just automatically shows this thing or these red lines as you go around. But if you were in design mode, you would have to hold the Option or Alt key to see this stuff. But I think in inspect mode, it's just on the whole time. But it's nice because, yeah, you can see the exact spacing between things, which is useful when you're trying to figure out what the padding is. In this case, these amounts feel very arbitrary, 63, 61. But it's probably because, actually, now that I'm digging more into this, maybe someone did rush through this file because these are not perfectly aligned.
Yep. They're not all the same size either.
Yeah, I think the text, interesting. Oh, yeah. Oh, an interesting.
How do you do a bug
design
report
challenge.
on Figma? On Figma files, actually.
Yeah, I think on Figma files, you probably have to go to the original creator and leave a comment or email them.
I'm gonna clip this so we can point them to.
Yeah, I think it's because these buttons are centered in a column. Yeah,
It looks like
that's probably
it.
what
Yeah.
we're seeing. Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
but if I look at the specs, am I to understand that the button should be bigger when it's hovered compared to when it's enabled? Like that would be the question, right? If I were looking at it and they were different sizes, it would be like, okay, is it supposed to like zoom in slightly or something along those lines? Which clearly not the intent here, but in a different case, it might be a valid question, right?
yeah. In this case, they're really just using the text to tell you what state it's in, but then it has the side effect of being bigger or smaller. So they probably could have made them all the same size if they wanted to. Let's see. But yeah, this is kind of the inspect mode, which I think Android developers are more familiar with than the design mode. But we can jump to the design mode too.
I would ask you a thing about the inspect mode before we move on to design, which is, so on the left-hand side underneath the pages, there is the list of components, right? As far as I understand, the purple ones are symbols or something like that, but I don't really know how that works. And I don't really understand how to use them in other places. Like I understand the symbols and styles system in Sketch, but not in Figma.
Yeah, the purple. I'll make this panel a little bigger. We can make this. Yeah. So the purple color is used for components and variants. Anything that's reusable, basically. So in Sketch, I guess they were called components. I can't remember. But in Figma, they are called components. And then, so for every component, you can make variants of a component. So in this case, the material team did a bunch of variants for the assistive chip, which, yeah, it looks like, oh wait, here we go. Yeah. So it looks like each of these are variants, but then what's interesting about Figma is like within the hierarchy on the left on the tree, you can expand it to see the exact contents of every variant, which is nice because what you can do, we're in inspect mode, so you can't really do this, but in design mode, so components, I guess to step back, components are ways to make reusable assets in Figma. So, it's very useful for making a design system, but they added variants because oftentimes you might have a component like a button, and you might have, a variant of a button is like based on state. So state was, I think in the past when we didn't have variants in Figma, you would basically create a different component for every state you would have. So like you would have a button component, but then you would have to have like a button hovered component and then a button pressed component. And then at some point it's like, well, these components, the only difference is like maybe you're changing colors within them. And so oftentimes it was okay when you were looking at them in isolation, but then when you were starting to use them all over your designs, you would have to like manage it. It became harder to manage these variants of these components as components themselves. And so I think variants was a way to help components scale based on state. But people have used them in many different ways besides state. But in this case, like this is what the material team decided to do. So with the assistive chip, like the variant itself there's different properties you can set on a variant. So in this case, there's elevation is true or false, configuration, there's many different kinds of configurations. And then within state, there's, even just with button state, there's 6 different ones. So depending on, you can kind of combine all these permutations to create a single variant. And I think if we go, you can go to the source of where this variant was made. Where is it? It is probably on this page somewhere. There's usually a handy link to it. I don't know where it went.
I can tell you the go to super type shortcut in Android Studio, but I don't think it's useful.
Yeah, maybe. Actually, now I'm confused because it's like where. Usually, it's like right. Oh, here we go. Oh, I wonder why it's not in here. Usually, it's in this file, so you can see the actual source of this variant. Or actually, oh, sorry. You know what it is? We're looking at the source.
Okay.
We're not. Yeah, we're not even looking at the instance. We're looking at the source. So for button, these are all the variants that they created. So this one is. So I guess what I can do is create a copy of it. So I'll move that over here. Oh, no, that is not what I want to do. This is what I want to do. Oh, no, that is not what I want to do. I think, wait, what is going on? Okay, yeah, there we go. So what I did here was you can see there's like a diamond, like a hollowed out diamond. This is a instance of this component. So you can tell because of that symbol, but also when you look at the properties panel on the right, it will show you, like, if I hover over, it says go to main component. So if you were using this instance of this component somewhere deep in your design file and your source of your components was in a different file or a different page, you can always use this link to kind of navigate back to the source.
Nice.
Yeah, and you can say return to instance also.
So say I want to change this to have like a click stage instead.
1 sec.
No worries.
I don't know. There's something going on back in the background.
Well, we are lucky that we had him waking up, because imagine receiving a phone call this early in the morning.
Sorry.
It was.
No, I'm in my. I'm actually sitting in my dad's office, so his like computer is like making all these weird sounds. So just like, who's calling? Anyway, so with this,
what I was asking is, so if you have an instance here, but can you change the instance to any other variant? So say now it's over, but I realize, oh, actually I want this to be clicked.
Yeah, so that's the power of variants. So in this case, I copied this instance, which was filled with icon and hovered. So I can change it to disabled, and then it goes to disabled. And then with icon, no icon. And then configuration, I can say like outlined, elevated, text. And so it's changing. It's basically selecting the right variant based on the parameters that I'm picking. But all of those variants are kind of shown here in this source file. So that's kind of what this hierarchy ends up being, is like you have button, which is the component, but you have all these variants of button. And so this is kind of how components have evolved in Figma, is you can create variants. So every time you create a variant, like you kind of have to, I think if I do this correctly, you can like copy and then you can paste it. And then yeah, I kind of messed up the layout, but like here you can, this is actually now a new variant within here. And then I can like change it to be a different, like I can say, oh, actually we can add a new configuration. Like,
Even.
it can just be like, yeah, it can just be even.
Yeah,
And then
pretty
we
much.
can add,
I'm gonna open a PR to the original
Yeah.
material design.
and then, but then with this variant, we can do things like let me just change the, oh no, that is the wrong color. You can mess around with the colors. Like you can say, oh, this is this.
Yeah.
But then, so now this is actually, at least it is one of the configurations we added is Yvonne. So it is now this red one. So if we go back to the instance of it, we can go back to here. We can say, oh, actually, I want to use the new configuration. And now it's that one.
The Yvonne one. Okay.
Yeah.
So basically, this is how you will build a design system for your theme, and then reuse the component over and over through your screens, right? So this is what my design team is probably doing without me knowing anything about this. Because I can't access the file probably, right? Because I'm no editor. I'm just probably viewing the outcome of this.
Yeah, I mean, I think if you, yeah, I guess it depends how much your design team shares with you, because they could be sharing with you just the file that's like the screen that you're working on, but they may not necessarily be sharing with you like the design system file. I think, yeah, I guess like just depends on like how you work with your design team, but I assume if they're using Figma that, most often there is some source of truth somewhere. It could be either in a library file or in the same design file. And I guess we can kind of segue to libraries.
Yeah.
Yep.
So I think that's the thing about instances is like you can delete all the instances, but like the source of truth is still here. So I still have this Yvonne configuration here. So for libraries, you can go to, so they call it assets, but within each file, there's going to be your local components that you've created. So libraries are basically just a way to share components outside of one Figma file. So in this case, they call them local files because I created these components within this Figma file.
Mm-hmm.
And so when you click it, you can see like, it's a component, like you can tell because it has either this diamond shape or this like 4-diamond shape. And it's kind of this purple color. You can also double check because you can go to the assets tab and see it, and you can see all the visual previews of it. But then what you can do is you can add different libraries to the current file, or you could publish all the components in this file as a library so that other files can use it. But the way Figma works, at least, is when you publish components from a current file, it will just publish it to the organization or the team account that this file lives in. If you wanted to, like in the material design case, if you wanted to publish a library to the community, there's a different workflow for that, which is basically which is kind of, I think what Material did here is they created this community file and then they just uploaded this community file to Figma community so that people can duplicate it. So if you're a designer and you said, hey, I want to use the Material 3 design kit, I believe the workflow would be you have to first duplicate this file and then internally in your own account, click this publish button.
That's the step that I had been missing. Because I was like, so wait, how does that work? Because I've tried using the component libraries in the past, and I'm like, so what am I supposed to do? Just have the two open and copy paste between one and the other, like a savage? It's not the most intuitive flow.
Yeah, I agree. I think that step is missing because I think people, especially like what I just showed you, right, is, oh, I have this Material 3 design kit, and then you're like, well, if I don't know any better, it's like, do I just copy paste out of this thing, or
how does it work?
But right? even the thing that I need to duplicate it is like, but I don't plan on editing that. So
Yeah.
that's what
Yeah.
I found confusing.
Yeah, and in this case, which I always forget, to do this, to use this feature, you have to have a paid account. So, which kind of makes sense. Like, I guess, like if you have a larger team and you really are trying to publish components to a shared library for other designers to use, then you're probably at a scale where you could afford to pay a little bit. But like I said, like, so this, even if you don't publish the shared library to your team, you can still use the components within your file, which is still infinitely useful because, like, I think, I mean, the thing about Figma is like you can create as many pages as you want. So like one way people have gotten kind of like a ton of use out of the free model is you basically just create one file and then you just create many, many pages. And then, you know, because I think it just depends how people like to design organize their work. But like I've done this for myself. Like I have this plugins file and like basically every random plugin I've made, it's like, sure, I could create a new design file for every plugin I make, but then like I'm not doing a ton of design work for these. So I just created one file and then I have different pages for the plugins I've made. And it's an infinite canvas. So it's like you can kind of like use this to however you want to do it. So I think it's, if you really don't want to pay for it, like there's ways to like use to really stretch Figma, the free model, where you don't ever have to really like pay for it. But at some point, like especially if you are creating shared libraries, like you'll end up wanting to pay for it, or you know, at some point this file will get out of control and there'll be too much stuff in it. But one thing, well, oh, go ahead.
I think that as every tool, at some point you get so attached, or it's so useful that paying it just feels like the right thing to do. Like I'm doing with JetBrains for even if I have a bunch of licenses for free, I pay. I mean, yeah, that's what we do.
Yeah, exactly. And I, at least in the last month or two, maybe just because I've had more free time personally, I've like used my personal account more, and I'm like, I should probably just pay for Figma. But yeah.
I mean, when you like a business, you don't want them to run out of business. So just you know, it's so just pay if you can.
But yes, so yeah, that's the thing about libraries is that's the one step that is not the most well known, is you have to publish it if you want to use it in different files. It's not super interesting here because I don't have many shared libraries in my team, but like if I were at Google, if you're within a specific organization, like you could see all the libraries that people have published within that organization. So like at Google, one thing they do, which is because material design is the design language for Google, is that every time, so like this Material 3 design kit is here on the community, like externally you can use it, but internally we would have access to the same file. So, but instead, rather than the workflow of me having to duplicate this file and then publish it internally, it would just be published. And so I could go to this list and see like, oh, like the Google material library or material design library is like available for me as a designer at Google to add to my file. But it's nice because you can actually turn files, you can kind of like turn files on and off, because every time you turn it on and off, it adds it to this list on the left. So as your organization grows, like you certainly want to be careful which libraries are added by default, because it makes search slow. I mean, that's one of the things that is still challenging with Figma, is like as these libraries get more and more complex, like this search becomes slower and slower. So like in this case, if I'm looking for, you know, a chip, that was kind of fast, but like that's like as you add more libraries to your file, like the search does get slow. So yeah,
makes
that's
sense.
just the one.
I mean, the library grows and takes time to search things.
So can we just because I'm looking at the time. We have another 30, 40 minutes, let's say. Um, can we try and do some designs using maybe the material components and see like how you would do that?
Yeah, let's try to do that.
Asking for a friend, right, Sebastian?
Well, asking for you mostly.
Oh yeah, I mean, let's throw Ivan under the bus. Okay, yeah, sure. Yeah, let's
Yeah.
go with it.
Yeah, so we can, let's see, so if people do want to follow along, let me paste this link in the chat. Oh, unfortunately, it'll be called Untitled.
It's fine. I'll share it. Perfect. I'm actually gonna open it as well. So you're gonna see me annoying you with my mouse.
Yeah, there we go. Oh, you're anonymous, but yeah,
Ah,
you're
yeah, I'm
anonymous
signing
because you're
in.
in my account.
Yep. I have an account, so I just need to sign in. Aha.
Oh, there we
Look
go.
at that. Look at that. Win. Oh, look at the. So this is the idea. When you were talking about, they thought about collaboration, like you have multiple cars, the pointers and things like that.
Mhm.
You see that people are actually messing with your design. I like it.
Yeah, and you can give people different permissions, and like you can follow me. So, if you, I guess yeah, it's hard to see, but like basically you can actually I can do it to you. So
Oh,
I guess if you move your cursor around, like it will start to follow you doing stuff. Yeah. Or like I think, let's see. Oh, I see.
Yeah, I
I
think you
can't
need to
add you as an
pay
editor.
restrictions. Well, never mind.
next time.
So
Yeah.
we
Next
found
time.
we found the edge of the tier very
Yeah.
quickly.
Yeah, if you want multiple editors, actually, I think it says you just. Oh, I think what it makes you do is you can move this from a draft into a project, and then within that project, then you can do it.
It's all right.
I
Don't
think
worry.
though. I wonder if so. Well,
It's
anyway,
fine.
we can do it later.
Yeah.
But yeah, usually, I mean, that's the thing with Figma is like, or at least designers sometimes start with the blank canvas where there's nothing.
Mm.
There's many templates out there from the community that you can start off with that give you things. That's maybe a better template than a blank canvas. But the first thing we would do is like create a frame. And so that's the F key, or like if you use this drop down here, it's right here. So frame is just like I guess a viewport, or like you can think about it as like a container. So a frame, you can kind of, there's different sizes for a frame. Like actually, I think I didn't show it, but yeah, if you hit F, you can draw the frame manually, or you can kind of pick from these presets. The Android presets are a little sad.
Just a bit.
Yeah, but yeah, the iPhone ones are obviously exhaustive. One, I think many Android designers have given Figma this feedback. I don't know. One day they'll do something about it. But I'll just pick the Android small one, which is kind of like what we used to all be designing for, which is 360 by 640. And then you can zoom in, and it's all very performant. We can rename this, so we can just say this is like the home screen. So then within the frame, we can just start to draw stuff. So we can draw rectangles, we can draw lines, arrows. So I think for material design, we could probably just copy paste some things. So let's see if we can. So I think one of the challenges is like when you're not as familiar with design, it's like a matter of like hunting around components to find things. So you're like, okay, well, I probably need a top app bar. So let me just take this and then I'll paste it here. So then, but it is a little bigger than that. So I'll try to resize it. And actually, this is nice is actually, oh wait, what's going on with the font? What is going on with this font? Oh no, it's still Roboto. Okay. So you saw that like this is actually kind of responsive. So this is built into the component. So what we can look at, actually you can kind of see it on the left, is the constraints is what's being used here. So the trailing icon, which is on the right, you can't change it because this is in the component, but this is constrained to the right and to the top. And then the leading icon is constrained to the left. And then the headline looks like it's always centered and then to the bottom. So with those constraints set, then when you kind of resize this, these things kind of change accordingly. And so you can do that pretty easily by yourself. So you can, like if we can create a component on the side here. In this case, like if we wanted to recreate this, we could draw that, and then we could just pretend this is one icon and then another icon, and then text and say, you know, this is top app bar or something. Let me zoom in just so you can see. So the reason frames are useful is because like when you set constraints on the children within a frame, then when the frame resizes, that's when the children kind of reflow. So by default, all of them have left and top constraints. So if I click this frame and then I just kind of fool around with the resizing, it doesn't really, nothing changes on the right. That's because I haven't set constraints. So if I click this rectangle and I say, actually, I want it to constrain to the right, then the next time I move this, then it will move.
Oh, nice. Oh, that's actually.
And then the same, you know, if you go up and down, right? These aren't constrained. So I could say, actually, you know, I want to constrain this not just to the top, but I want to constrain it to the center. And then what that means is it'll always be centered.
Nice.
And so within this frame, so, you know, with this frame, we can create a component now. So we can click this button here that says create component. And so now this is a component within your file. And so when I create instances of it, I can just put it, you know, wherever I want. And then it will respect the constraints that I set in the component. So here, and then what it does is you can change the component, you know, I'll change this leading icon to a red color. And, you know, maybe I'll round the corners to make it 20, or sorry, that's too much, 8. And then, you know, now these are instances of the component. But what's really cool about, this is what I really love about Figma, or one of the things I loved in the beginning is, so for every instance of the component, you can override them locally and not have to actually break the component or detach it. So in this case, you're like, oh, actually, I want this rectangle to be not red, but I want it to be blue. And it doesn't change the source. It's just like, oh, you just overrode this one property here.
Instance. Nice.
Yeah. And if you want to reset it, you can. But it's nice because you can make these little changes, not just to the properties, but you can actually hide and show things too. So for example, you're like, actually, I don't want to show this leading icon in this instance. I can just hide it and then it's gone. But what makes that interesting, it's not so interesting here because of constraints, but like if we pretended that, so I'll introduce you to another idea. It's called auto layout, which is basically like row and column in Compose or linear layout in views. But you can select a bunch of things and you can say, I want to put this into an auto layout. And that is usually through Shift A. And it puts it into a frame, and then it says auto layout here on the right. And in this case, it was smart enough to realize that these were horizontally arranged. And so it puts it in a horizontal auto layout. But if you switch it to vertical, it will put it in a vertical. And it kind of infers things like, oh, you had 41 pixels between things, but you can say, actually, you know, I want 8 pixels. And then you can do things like, oh, I want them to be all centered. You can set padding around them.
Fancy.
And then you can do different flex things too, because in this case, you're saying, okay, this auto layout is constrained to the left and the top, but like the vertical can be
hug content. I like it.
Fit to content, yeah. But you can say horizontally, actually, I want it to, actually, I don't know if this will work. Yeah, you can say, you can make it fixed or not. So I can, that's I think what I'll do. I'll make it so that it's about 60. Oh yeah, so this is what I was saying before. If you hold Alt, then you can see all these spacing information in design mode. It's not as, the reason it's under Alt is just because it will be less distracting when you're doing this. But I can just make this 16 on both sides. Let me just do it by hand. There we go. But then now this rectangle is, we want it to kind of always be all the way to the right. So it's not going to be, but what we can do is like for an element within the layout, you can say, actually, can I just do fill container? And so this kind of gives it flexible information within it. And so this ends up pushing this one all the way to the left and then keeping this, or sorry, on the right, and this is in the middle. But now this frame has some constraints built into it. It's only on the left, but I can actually make it left and right vertically, horizontally. And then vertically, I can do it centered. And so then when we do it here, so all that information is still in the component, and this hasn't changed. But now like that is translated back. And then when I do things like, if I hide this middle thing, the text,
oh nice,
it knows about this because it's from the auto layout, that it's like, oh, there's actually some constraints built into this. And so I didn't have to actually I didn't have to alter the source component. I can kind of like flexibly do this. And so it's kind of nice because you can hide and show things within the instance of a component and not have to like totally rebuild things or reduplicate and things and create more work for yourself. But as I said, you can do auto layout horizontally. You can do it vertically. So in this case, if this was a list, I can just do Shift A again. This is now a vertical list. And then every time I copy something, it kind of, the list just grows. And then I can like drag and drop to rearrange them.
Nice.
Yeah. So like making, as it should be, making lists should be easy to do in design tools. And, you know, now in Compose, it's very easy to do with list, but
thank God.
Yeah, thank God. But yeah, this is, and then you can do, oh, I don't know why it's, so if you click on the auto layout itself, like you can create, like I said, different spacing between things. You can say 8 pixels between every single thing. But you can also do, that's kind of like if you want to space things evenly, but you can also, this is like kind of using the Flexbox model where you can kind of pack them closer together or space between them. So if we went back to our fun component here, instead of saying fill container, we can say hug contents. It ends up doing that, right? But then we can change it to say, actually, this main frame can use the Flexbox model of arrangement to say, actually, I want to space between them, and does the same thing. So, yeah, there's a lot of flexibility with what you can do here. But then with each frame, or really with each element, you can do things like round the corners. So in this case, I want the frame to, I want it to have rounded corners, and it'll be 16. It's not so interesting here because it's white on white, but if I were to change the fill color of this to something different, yeah, then now, oh, yeah, now there's actually different fill colors. And then you can say, actually, I want to add. Yes. Yeah, and then you can mess around with all the borders. You can add stroke. You know, you can change it to 10 if you want. You can, for each of these strokes, you can use solid colors. You can use gradients, and then you can even add drop shadow. So yeah, and then the nice thing is like you can kind of like you can set properties, but you can hide and show them just quickly.
Yeah, toggle them off.
Yeah. Or like I said, this is, you know, getting deeper into overriding properties. Like you can say, actually, for this second one, I want to go, this is why going into seeing the hierarchy of the instance is useful, because you can go into this frame and oh wait, why didn't this work? Oh yeah, here we go. You can go into this instance and say, actually, I want the stroke to be 8 and a different color. And it's the same instance of the same component. It's just this one's slightly tweaked. But yeah, I think so. If we deleted all that, so we have our top app bar. I think in Ivan's case, it's books. Yeah, I mean, that's how you would bring in top app bar. But like, if you wanted to use other components, like if we needed a fab, or actually that's a navigation rail, so that's different. There's many different color fabs here, so we'll probably want a primary one enabled. We'll just paste it here, put it in this frame. And then, fabs are usually positioned towards the bottom, so we'll put it here. We'll kind of guess that it should be about, we'll just say it's 20 from the right and then 20 from the bottom. And then you can click this and say constrain to bottom, constrain to right, so that if this screen ever changes, it always moves around.
Nice.
But actually, if you noticed, this top app bar isn't scaling with the screen, so you have to set constraints on this too. So you can say, actually, this goes to the left and the right, and then the top. And so now, if I were to change this to a tablet size, this should change accordingly.
Nice.
But then with Figma, so when you do, we can kind of work through this a little bit. So you can duplicate the screen pretty easily. And then what we can do is, let me move this up here. I'm going to move it up here. And then, yeah, the constraints can stay the same. And then I'll duplicate this again. And then I'll move this to the left. I'll just align this. And then duplicate it again. And then I'll put it down here. Yeah. All right, so then we can do prototyping. So what I can do is say, when I click this button, go to this screen. Then when I click this button, go to this screen. When I click this button, go to this screen. So these are all instant animations. And so if I were to click play, this is what it would show this. Actually, oh wow, it nicely put this in a frame. I did not do that. I think because it knows it's an Android device. Well, that's a nice touch.
Nice.
But yeah, if I click this, you can see the button moves around. But then if we go back, yeah, and then let's say if I click this, I'll go back to the main screen. But what's cool about Figma is animations are simple. So with this, I can actually say smart animate. And what it will do is it will actually it will try to infer like how things have changed in the screen, kind of like Magic Move in Keynote. And so if I were to go back,
do you need to do black magic with grouping with null elements like you do in Magic Move, or?
No, here I think let's see, if I click this, it will move. Yeah.
Nice.
And that was just with Smart Animate.
Well, that's actually intense for I mean, how they figure out it's not trivial. I'm not sure. I mean, that's nice.
Yeah. So
yeah, but this is like, this feels like because the screens are they have the same toolbar, and the button feels like the button is moving while you're actually navigating to another screen. Probably, I guess if you pick an animation like slide in or fade or something like that, and you can even convey more navigation feeling. But I love it.
Yeah, I think in this case, like, I think there's some of these smart animates one of them, but yeah, you could do slide in, and then I think that will look more like it'll look
Something
more
is
like
happening, right?
yeah. I don't know if you saw it, but you can it kind of slides
I
in.
love it.
It's definitely iOS-y.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
the sliding I get, but you have no idea how many I build on Android. So don't get me started.
Oh no, I don't mean the slide in itself. It's just like the way where the other one kind of grays out while the other one is coming in. That's very iOS.
Yeah.
As is usually the case with design tools, I guess.
Well,
Yeah.
we are
Yeah.
getting there, Sebastiano. We are getting there.
Yeah.
A man can hope.
Oh yeah. So this is very cool, but where is the right-click export as Compose UI button? Do we have, because that will be like a cool plugin. That will be a very nice plugin.
It's not there yet, but I think so. There is I think there's a team in the material design that they made. I think they're calling it design to code. But there's a Figma plugin that they have in a closed beta or closed preview that you can use that allows you to export Figma components as Compose code.
Whoa. Okay, I was kidding, but yeah. But that's so I'm gonna mark this. I'm gonna mark this so we can cut it out of the VOD because this is not platform. So if you heard this on the live, lucky you. This has never happened.
Yeah.
I'm kidding. But yeah, this sounds super cool.
Yeah, so I think you can sign up for the beta. It's not open yet, but I think they're still working on it. But yeah, the idea is that they wanted to make the handoff easier between designers and developers. And so like that's one thing, right? Like if you go to the inspect tab, it's for the Android, especially for the Android export, it's not the best because it's like, okay, it's giving you a relative layout, but I don't even know if there's even more. Oh yeah, there is. Okay. But in this case, right, it's like, oh, it's the code is just really weird. It's like, okay, it's a relative layout, but then they're just basically drawing things directly to the canvas. So it's like a clip path. It's like, well, that's not really a component. It's like, I wouldn't want to use that directly.
No, please don't.
Yeah. So I think the tool I've seen, they try to make it a little smarter where it's like, if they can detect that you're using a specific component in Figma, they will try to make that component a composable. And then they'll kind of go through the hierarchy. So if they notice like, oh, you're nesting components, which you can do in Figma, then they'll, like actually in this case with the top app bar, right? Like trailing icon and leading icon are components also. And so they will, I think the way it will work is it will kind of go through the tree and create composables for things that are also components, just so you have the most reusability possible.
That's actually,
I think though, yeah, and I think Compose, the layout model with row and column and box and arrangement and modifiers are pretty close to Figma in terms of the constraint model. They don't map one-to-one semantically, but like technically they're pretty similar in terms of capabilities. So I think that translation will not be as difficult as it used to be with views.
Nice.
Yeah, and I think that's kind of where things are going. I think see, like one thing, this is more of just a selfish plug, but one thing I did do over the break is I created this is for Compose, but I created this shape composer plugin. It doesn't export compose code like the screen, but it exports shapes as a shape class that you can use. So Material 3 or Material U has a lot of these interesting shapes like squircles and bottle caps and I call this a clover. This is like a pill. This is a cookie or flower. These shapes in Compose, we only get circle, rectangle, cut corner, rounded corner. I think that's it. So if you wanted to use a different shape, you could do it in Canvas, but then you'd have to draw it yourself. And then it's like, well, I don't want to draw shapes in Canvas by myself. So what I did was like, it's relatively easy to draw these shapes in Figma. And so it's like, well, can I just take this shape in terms of the outline and then export it to Compose in a shape class that I can then reuse anywhere that I can use shape in Compose.
That's cool.
And yeah, so what I ended up doing was you can actually making squircles is not always the easiest thing. So there's a squircle plugin you can use. And here you can say width, height, and you can kind of change it to 10. And then I can take this and then do Shape Composer. It will run it. Is it going to break? Oh, what's going on? Oh, of course. Oh, maybe because I'm using the local version. Something broke. Oh, that's weird. Anyway, that demo failed. But
I mean,
It was a demo
try
after all.
again. I mean, that's what demo do.
oh, I think
Fail
it's
to.
running. Oh yeah, so the other thing is Figma is a web app, so you can use Chrome developer tools to see what's going on.
Fair enough.
Anyway, it failed, but it will basically export. I think it's the development version failed, but the production one works fine. It exports to a shape class, and so it makes it easy to reuse stuff.
But what do you get? Would you get a file back that you download, or it's like gives you the code and then you copy paste it?
Yeah, you would get a code back, and you would just paste it.
Okay.
It basically
nice.
creates a shape class. It basically takes the path data from Figma and then redraws it with Android Path.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's
Which wasn't too hard, but it's like to do that manually every time in translating that it always took longer. And so it's like if I could just have a plugin to do it, then it was nice. So because the other thing is we don't have some of these interesting shapes available in sorry, we don't have them available in the material library right now. So that's the other reason why it was just easier. Actually, I think I'm just going to paste this from GitHub, but yikes. Left aligned. This is kind of what the code ends up looking like.
Okay.
So you have a clover shape, and then it just overrides the function create outline, but then it takes the height, width from Figma, and then it basically just goes along the path and just redraws things with the commands like cubic to, move to. Has some other math in there just in case you want to like use this as a different size, because sometimes the size you draw in Figma is not the actual size you'll use it in the app. So this transform code just makes it a little easier so that, if you want to use it at a different size, then you can. Of course, your mileage will vary if you change the aspect ratio of the shape. So often the shapes are a 1-to-1 aspect ratio, but if you made like a longer pill, that's not going to be exactly, the aspect ratio will change. So your shape may morph in weird ways, but yeah.
This is great. I mean, I love it. This is the same effect that you have on Twitter on your avatar, right?
Yes, it is.
now I see so you beta tested it into the wild on Twitter.
Yeah, and I've used this now for my other toy app that I've used.
Nice.
I think we don't have as much time to fully design this, but
Sebastian, you have questions, or Chris, you have any other pills of awesomeness. This thing is so much cooler now that I can understand things. So thank you.
Well, personally, no, but I finally understood how symbols and libraries work, which I never really could understand. And the Figma help pages are fairly useless for that. So, thank you, Chris.
Well, with styles, yeah, I think you also asked about styles. So the way that works is it's similar where you create it in the file. And so in this case, like this squircle has a gray fill. So I can add, so there's a bunch of color styles in here by default, but you can add a new one and you can say new style. And now it's reusable. And so if you want to, like if I wanted to change this to a different color, I always go to purple.
It's gonna change.
So then the next time I draw another rectangle, I can just use the style. Or like here, yeah, with this fab, it's using these material styles that are built into that library. But you can change these to anything you want. So, yeah.
Got it.
But then what's not the most intuitive is the way to see all the styles that are in the file. You have to like click the empty space in the canvas, and then it will show you everything. So there's like color styles, I think there's, and text styles. I think that's all they have. And you can kind of nest them too. Like I think the material design file has way more. Yeah, so in the material design file, this is how they're nested. So these are all the text styles, which there are many. And then these are all the like color styles, which there are many as well. But yeah, there is some nesting here. So there's some order to it.
Nice. It's a lot of stuff. As usual, a lot of content.
Yeah, and so the styles are useful because like as the designer, like when you start to create your design system, it's like you have specific brand colors you have or different font styles, similar to how material theming works. And so you want to set those in your file as you get started. That way, like as your UI scales out, you can draw more and more stuff. And reuse things and make changes faster than hand editing everything.
Makes sense. Automation.
Yeah,
automation at any level.
I really like how much you can automate it. I guess to make a plugin, you need to do JavaScript or TypeScript anyway, right?
Yeah. So the programming model is TypeScript for plugins. An API is pretty good. I think it's much better documented than like previous plugin platforms like Sketch. The plugin API was not really well documented.
Yeah.
There's a lot of really great examples out there. Yeah, and it's Chrome because it's web, you can kind of use Chrome developer tools to help you a little bit with debugging. And yeah, I think actually no, I don't know what I was going to say, but yeah, it's a pretty flexible plugin model. So I think that's why there's been a lot more development, because it's been pretty easy for people to get started. Like I built this Shape Composer plugin, but I've built other plugins in the past. Because it's web, like another plugin I've built is it's actually an IntelliJ plugin. It's
nice.
It's IntelliJ icon. Yeah.
Wait.
So
nice.
It's a
so you can
collaboration.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, someone attributed me to this, but yeah, what all this is it's a wrapper around the website, and so I basically built some custom CSS styles so that it looks nice in this frame size. But yeah, you can actually I can show it to you in action. You can open it.
For the next time, you need to design an IntelliJ plugin, right?
Yeah. So then, you can go light or dark theme. You can search. So we can always type Kotlin. And then it doesn't have drag and drop, unfortunately, because there's some limitations in the Figma API. But if you double click it, then it just adds it to the canvas.
This is so cool.
Easiest way
Yeah.
to add a compose icon to your file.
Yeah, you can just get it directly from IntelliJ. But the compose icon, I guess, that they stored is the true size of it, which is really big, versus like all the other icons tend to be 16 by 16. So
looks like it.
yeah, but some people ask, like, why didn't you? Because you can do little things like, if I put it into the canvas, you can automate it. You can write in the script to say create a component when you add it to the canvas. But I didn't do that because I think designers kind of manage their components in their own way, and so if they want to turn this into a component, they can. But otherwise, I just leave it. Actually, the one thing I will show is part of creating components, right? Is these are 3 different components, but I can actually say I want to create multiple components from them, and then I can rename them too if I wanted to. So I can hit R, and then I can say, actually, I want to take the current name, but then append icon to the front.
Oh, nice.
And this nesting behavior actually ends up making them kind of related to each other. So if I click this, then I paste it. So now I have this instance of the Android icon. Make it a little bigger. And so then here I can easily swap it. So I can say, because it has that slash, you can change it to swap it like this. Yeah, so it gives you, that slash gives you some organization as you browse through your components here. But this was what you would used to do before variants. So now with variants, but if I go back, I can just remove the icon thing. But when you do that, right, like you go back, then they're not related to each other anymore. But you can just, it actually kind of knows this. It's like, oh, combine as variants. So you can just click this button. It magically creates a variant or a component with variants. And then this we can say is icon. And then the property can be just named. And so then now when you look at each of these, it's like I can go back, and now you're not swapping instances of the components. You're just now changing the variant. So here I can go away. I don't know why it's okay. Yeah. Here you're just changing the name. So yeah. So this is kind of like a different way to do variants. With icons, it's not as interesting because you're really just switching icons. But as we saw with the button example, it can get a lot more complicated. So yeah, that's how you can create reusable sets of things too with icons.
That's super cool. Thank you. I think we need to wrap things up. But
yes.
Yeah, we didn't really have time to do the redesign of Events app, but maybe we can do it another time. Now that we have the basics of how to use Figma covered.
Well, I guess I can give you a preview. Like if we wanted to fast forward to what we could end up creating. I did this over the break, but this is like, so I actually made this app for my wife in Flutter before, a long time ago. It's a very basic app, but it's similar to the design of Ivan's app where it's a list of books. This was just the basic material design that I had because I didn't really put a lot of time into it. I just built the app. But then when I actually had time to sit down and do a little bit more design work and use kind of some material 3 stuff, then I went a little more crazy. So a lot of rounded corners, progress spinners, different fonts, different shapes. This is a teardrop shape, but as you can tell, where is it? Yeah, I had a lot of experimentation with different shapes here.
Nice.
So actually, yeah, you can kind of see it like this is using a Squircle. Anyway, yeah. And there's dark theme and light theme. There's only one screen on this app, but
yeah, but I mean, I cannot see the difference between my design and your design. Honestly, I mean, they look pretty much the same. I mean, yeah. I mean, yeah, probably, yeah.
Yours is more orange,
Is,
I think. That's the main difference.
yeah, but it's also more. It's also more horrible, Sebastiano.
I was trying to be nice.
Definitely. Yeah, I know. I appreciate that. This is actually super nice because I would never. I mean, that's not my job, and I get it, but that's not even how my brain works. I will never tweak like a card view in that way, right? The card view for me is the one on the left. Okay, that's it. You got the card view. There is a title of it. If you pick the one in the middle, I will say, okay, that's definitely still a card view, but they look slightly nicer. That's how my brain works. My brain is on the left. Your brain is way in a different place. But this is cool. This is cool. Also dark theme support, because why not, right? Just why not? I don't have it in my work app, and you have it in your pet project. Yes, that's that's how you roll, apparently, Chris. Yes. Oh, this is great. I love it.
And that's why we have designers even.
Yeah, tell me about it, my friend. Oh yeah, look at that. The round corner is not even the same on every side. Fuck me, this is so good. I mean, that's nice.
Yeah,
that's nice. That shouldn't be hard to do with Compose, right?
No, I
just
built
have a
this in
shape
Compose already.
You don't even need a custom shape. Just need the corner radius to not be the same.
Yeah.
Nice. I love it.
Yeah, I have
nice.
this.
Nice.
I built this in Compose as well. That was part of the exercise, and it's relatively pretty easy from the UI perspective. The fun part was drawing this ring and animating it.
So that's what's that? The like the review stars? How do you imagine that?
I think for your case, this would be the review. So it wouldn't. So my use case is that it's more like every multiple of one is one rotation around, or one trip around the circle. Nice. Which is why but it's actually kind of hard to draw that in Figma to have an overlapping arc. It was easier to do in code with Canvas.
Wow.
Yeah. Just because it's I don't know, the tools just didn't really allow for it. But yeah, for you, I think you would never have an overlapping arc. It would always just be, the full arc would be 5, and then the empty arc would be 0. So it was just
so nice.
Yeah. So in this case, like this is 1.5, but in your case, this would probably be 75% of 5. It's 3.25 or something. Yeah.
So even
3.5.
see you even in 2 weeks with the new version implemented.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, sure. No, but the migrating the app, I don't know if it's gonna be so quick because of the gazillion of ads and stuff that I have into, and the navigation is I don't know, but definitely I can start building components and try to replace the card with a composable instead of having like just a card view, bit by bit. That's also leveraging the the interoperability of Compose. You don't need to do it in one shot and just get overwhelmed, but I can do it bit by bit. But thanks. Well, this is very nice.
So what better way to celebrate than to give away some stickers even?
Yeah. So I was just gonna run. So in the background I ran the IntelliJ giveaway. So we have the 2 winners. And I'm gonna just post it here for fairness. they are Benny and Jovan. So congratulations, you got a IntelliJ license. I'm gonna reach out on YouTube. Thank you for being with us and participating over the holidays. For the giveaway for the stickers, let's roll it. Ba, 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 ba. Yeah, our resident DJ, or like the
Composer?
music maker, the composer. Wow, the composer.
It
I see
works
what
on
you did
so
there,
many
Sebastiano.
levels.
Yeah, I see what you did there. Congratulations, Marks. You're gonna get a bunch of stickers, and so don't. Thank you for playing. And what else, Sebastiano?
Uh, I think we are done for today. We'll see you on Sunday. We're still like not 100% decided what we're gonna do. Either improving the snow particles effect that we worked on with Mark before the holidays, or there's some things that the folks from Shot have done that maybe will make screenshot testing work this time.
More
So we can
animations.
also, yeah, or animations, but we need something to animate first. So there's that.
Yeah, fair
Oh,
enough.
thank you
Fair
for
enough.
the
Oh,
gift,
thank
Bo.
you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, thank you, thank you. And this is very generous. Thank you. So we need to figure out what to do on Sunday, but we will probably announce it later today or tomorrow maybe, because we need to do the graphics. So we need to figure it out by by Sunday.
Exactly.
So
To answer the
Chris,
question in the chat, this thing here, it's a gift from a friend. I don't know what it is. It's just it's a battery powered thing that responds to sound.
it's very cool. We can look it up. We can ask maybe.
Yeah, I can ask.
So, Chris, once again, thank you for being with us. Thank you for showing all this magical stuff. Magical for me. But I like the idea that I can use it for free, and I can import the plugin, the design kits, and I'm a bit less afraid of messing around with Figma now. So cool. Thanks.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, it's a very forgiving tool, I think, and I think what's cool too is like you and I could easily just be in the same file. Like you could work on something and then just be like, hey, can you take a look? You just send me the link and I'll look at it. And that's the beauty of Figma is like I don't have to install anything or download anything. It's just like you can send me the link and I can see things in real time, and I can even leave you little notes and tips and stuff. So it's a great way to learn too, when you collaborate with people, not just for feedback, but for like working through things.
Nice.
Yeah,
I love it. And I love it that they have a free tier. So
yeah, that's always good.
yeah. But yeah, we'll see. I mean, I think it's the big thing now. Who knows? 2 years from now, there might be another design tool.
Probably.
So, it always happens.
Yeah, there's always something new.
Yeah.
Okay, Chris, we'll see you as usual in 2 weeks for our next design episode. And in the meantime, thank you everyone that joined us. It's been super cool having everyone. Even Trolley McTrollface didn't get to do too much damage on on Figma. Have a good one, everyone, and we'll see you on Sunday for a surprise episode to us as well, because we don't really know what's going to be. Bye.
Ciao, ciao.
Hi, everyone.